Okay, so we're recording, everyone. This is our first one of these. We're just trying it out. This is Dominique, and she's a new mom. Your baby
Woo!
was only born a couple weeks ago. When
Yeah,
was
December 7th. So he's
that's
still,
flown by?
I know, but he's growing so fast.
Yeah. And so we're also going to do one of these where we work a little bit more on the core muscles, but I thought this would be a really good opportunity for us to talk about pelvic floor stuff since you run the group. It's I
Two
forget the
hearts, one bump.
two hearts, one bump. So I'm going to go over a little bit of anatomy with you in the pelvic floor. And I think one of the things that women tend to forget as we get older and have kids is we forget basic anatomy and what we've learned in biology. And so one of the
Mm.
things that I want to bring attention to is that there's actually 3 different layers of the pelvic floor with about 12, 13 different little paper thin muscles. So here's a little picture for you to see. So you can see there's the anus, the urethra, and so it's kind of like a little figure 8 in there.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
those different layers, they go from inner to medium to outer. And when we just do a Kegel, we're literally just, I call it like an on and off switch. We're
Okay.
not really reaching the full potential of all these muscles. When we do a
Okay.
Kegel, we're just kind of coached to say, okay, just turn on and off the flow of urine. But what about
Huh.
all those other muscles down there? And so that's what we're going to cover today is I'm going to cue you through about 9 different moves, and we're going to kind of experience firsthand of what you think and how well you are able to connect all of them, especially both. You can do this with your moms in your group during pregnancy and postpartum. And
Does
yeah,
this stuff apply for those who are trying to conceive and like pre-pregnancy?
yeah, you can be doing this pre-pregnancy. This is the first one, especially is very, very good to go over to figure out how well connected you are to your pelvic floor. If you are a runner, a cyclist, a CrossFitter, if you ride horses for me, I rode horses for so long.
Mm-hmm.
What else? If you're a dancer, gymnast, so many of us we're so used to having our pelvic floor turned on for when we're having heavy weights, while we're in
Mm-hmm.
like a saddle position. Gymnasts, they're always having to kind of clench the pelvic floor, and they're not necessarily doing a Kegel, they're just tightening the muscles around the area, so
Mm-hmm.
they don't even realize how tight their pelvic floor may be. Women who have been raped, they may carry the
Mm-hmm.
stress. Women who are just stressed, maybe too, they could, just like how we carry stress in our shoulders, these are muscles, and people do tend to carry stress there. So the first one, I'll coach you through it. This again is one of those really good ones to figure out where you are with your pelvic floor and if it's too tight or weak. As I don't like calling it weak, or it's just it could be strengthened. So the first one is relax, contract, and bulge. So now this is where I get like the big eyes, like, you want me to relax my pelvic floor? Isn't it always relaxed?
Yeah.
You want me to contract my pelvic floor? I think I'm doing it right. And then especially with the bulge, people are like, I have no idea what you want me to do when you say bulge. So for the relax is if you were just to take a deep breath and you kind of tune in. Can you kind of sense it start to kind of go down? For me, I can definitely start to sense like me not tightening it anymore.
Yeah.
And then we have the contraction, and the basic contraction is just trying to see if you can turn it on and off.
Okay. Kind of like a Kegel or not
Yeah,
as
kind of
much.
like a Kegel. Yeah, you can call it like, you can kind
Like
of
semi.
sense, okay, I can squeeze some, I can activate some
Yeah.
muscles down there. And then the
Okay.
last one with the bulge is, now imagine, I like to put, if you're sitting cross-legged, try not to sit cross-legged for this
Okay.
one, but see if you can just push down
I
with the
think I know what you
pelvis.
mean.
Yeah,
Yeah, like I'm pushing a ball out or something,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And so
Kind
for
of like
women,
almost like a bowel movement, but in a different area.
yes. Exactly. Like I tend to do this when I would have a tampon and I'm like trying to like flex the tampon out. I was like pushing it out.
It's like the opposite of the contraction. Contraction's like I'm trying to suck something in, and this is like I'm trying to push it out.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And so many women, this is what we're supposed to be doing during labor. So we're past that now, but
yeah. Well, there will be lots more to come.
yeah. So that move of bulging, it comes in handy when you're trying to have a baby and you're trying to help push. It's not like you're trying to flex with and that's what I'm so annoyed with when people are in labor and they're like, well, use your pelvic floor muscles. And people are like, well, I'm turning them on. And I'm like,
maybe people are doing Kegels and it's like the opposite that they're supposed to be doing, basically, right?
Yes. So the other way and I'm going to give you a little trick, and if you were with some friends and you were trying to explain how to bulge, and it's a little bit different if you're standing, but if you imagine blowing into a balloon and that first blow it and it like the first inhalation out into the balloon, you kind of get that sense of, oh my gosh, what is that? And especially when you're pregnant and you're pretty far along, it's a really uncomfortable feeling because you just kind of feel like, oh my gosh, I'm going to let the whole baby go in this. And so that's the first one. So depending on how easy and how hard it is for you to kind of feel that, that's a good sense of if you have a pelvic floor that's too tight or a pelvic floor that could just kind of need to be strengthened.
Okay.
Cool. So I'll go to the next one. So the urethral is basically that first contraction where you're just able to turn it on and off, the Kegel. And a side note on the Kegel, it's actually named after a man, Dr. Kegel, and he came up with, I think it was in the 50s or something. So I just think it's funny that 60-some years later, we're still
calling it that.
We're still calling it that after a man. And not to say men can't also contract their pelvic floors. Men have pelvic floors.
Well, yeah, but it's probably different. A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. But they don't have a baby coming out of it. So let's for me, my favorite thing is after these 9 Qs, you're basically going to like have a major upgrade install in your house. And instead of having like an on-off switch, you'll be able to have a dimmer.
Awesome.
Yeah. So after after the on and off, I call it wink the anus. So with the wink the anus, without squeezing your glute muscles, see if you can tighten your anus.
It's hard to not engage the glutes.
It is.
Because I can feel my glutes contracting too.
Yeah.
That's going to take some work.
That takes some work, exactly. And then the other one is lift up and in. So this one, you're going to take the innermost muscles, squeeze them, and try and go to the out and pull it up. So it's
all the way up.
All the way up.
Okay.
And that's see, I like to think about, I like to think about like if you were in an elevator. And this is a good way for you to kind of test yourself as you progress, is that can you get to the first floor? Can you squeeze even more without engaging the glutes? Can you get to the second floor? And then can you get to the third floor? And that's kind of our goal.
Using like your stomach a little bit?
If you're using your stomach a little bit, that's awesome. That means that you're engaging the rest of the core muscles to help you.
Yeah, because it's like higher than the vaginal area. It's like kind of where my incision is almost, like pulling all the way up.
And it's so hard for women who have C-sections to start connecting to those lower abdominal muscles. Yeah. And there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're doing it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. So then the other one is sit bone to sit bone. So now we're going to the sides. So the outer mouth, and see if you can go the 2 sides and bring them together.
Do you use the glutes on this one? No?
No.
I think I kind of feel it.
You can feel it a little bit.
It's like lower than the vaginal area, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like almost the anus, like kind of in between.
In between the 2, yeah.
Yeah, I feel that one.
Yeah.
But it's still hard to not use your glutes.
It is. It takes, even me, and I do this, I would probably say like these 9 keys, whenever I'm coaching someone through it, I always do it with them. And then like I told you, like when I'm giving my baby a bottle or I'm sitting and reading a book or watching TV, I kind of go through these in my head. So I don't do them as often as I should be, but I mean, I do them probably once to twice a week. And for me still, some of these I'm like, that dang glute, stop activating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then once you get the side to side, we go front to back.
Oh. Yeah, that one for me was like right away.
Yeah. Awesome. And then we go superficial before deep. So now that we've connected to the outers, the sit bone to sit bone and front to back, now imagine grabbing all four corners and then pulling it up again into the elevator shaft. And how high can you go?
It's kind of like the elevator one, but even stronger now that I've engaged the other parts of it, right?
Exactly. And now you can pull it up. And now that you pull it up, you may be able to like stay on a floor and then come up. And so my goal is always to go up. Like when I'm breastfeeding, this one's my favorite because I can connect really well to all four corners and pull it up. And then when I get to that third floor and I'm holding it, I imagine like I'm Carrie Bradshaw in that gorgeous apartment that she and Big got in the movie. And I'm like looking, I'm doing like a 365 degree like view of like, or 360 degree view of like, oh my God, this is beautiful. And then I go back down in the elevator.
Okay. Cool.
So that's like that would be like, if you can be doing that every single time, and you can be, when Jace is breastfeeding, you just have them on there and you do one lift and then come down and then another lift and come down. And you can do it with your breath too. If you can do it with your breath, that's awesome. Where you inhale. Yeah,
I was going to ask, is there like a recommended pace? Like, should I be counting or, you know, hold it at the top?
So when I hold it at the top, I like to be able, you can see how long you can hold it, but just make sure you're not holding your breath. So go for like maybe 5 seconds in the beginning and then work your way up to 6. I wouldn't go more than 10 because that means that you're breathing about 6 times and that you'd be like falling asleep.
Yeah, it's hard to remind yourself to breathe. Like whatever I do, yoga, CrossFit, whatever it is, I have to constantly be reminded, like take a deep breath. One time I was doing actually it was like a year ago, I did a CrossFit competition. I was so focused on getting my dumbbell thrusters. One of the coaches walked by. She was like, breathe.
Yeah. So yeah, when you come up, take a big deep inhale and release everything. And then as you exhale, imagine then kind of contract the abs and bring everything up. Hold it. 5.
So you pull up as you exhale. Yeah. I always forget when to inhale versus when to exhale.
Inhale, when you inhale, your belly should be expanded and the pelvic floor should be dropped.
Okay.
And then as you exhale, the pelvic floor lifts and the abs contract.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay. So we did front to back, superficial before deep. And then what we just got into is we lengthen. This is cue number 8, is we lengthen during the inhale. So like I said, as the belly goes out, air is kind of pushing into the belly from the diaphragm, and the diaphragm's also pushing down, pushing the pelvic floor down. And then as we exhale, they both go up and the abs come in.
Okay. That makes sense.
And that's it.
So do these also apply for, like, I know there's a lot of moms who they already have a couple kids and they don't really know necessarily if they're planning for another one. Does this work for like strengthening what's going on down there, even if they're not wanting to have another kid necessarily?
Connecting to your pelvic floor like this, like we don't plan on having any more kids.
Yeah.
But just after having 2, I can tell you after my first, I didn't know the cues for this. I was kind of just getting into the pelvic floor area. And really all I was taught from my coaches at that time was do a Kegel. Right. And then during the pregnancy with my second, I took another course and it talked all about this. And so I did this all throughout my pregnancy. And I started doing this the moment I was in the hospital. After he was born, every time he would nurse on one side, I think it was my left side, every time he nursed on the left side, I would work on my pelvic floor. Every time he worked on the right side, I would work on my core muscles. I got back into the gym and like running and doing jump lunges and everything so much faster with my second than after my first. And
just from really strengthening the core.
I was strengthening my core. I was better connected to to the muscles in general and how to activate them so that when I needed to, I could. And it's usually for women after their second child, their pelvic floor is even weaker because all they've been doing is the Kegels. And if you're just doing the Kegels, like as we did the second, I think it was the second one, it's just really on and off. You're not really.
Well, if there's 8 or 9 different cues and you're doing the same one over and over, you have all these other muscles that are like, just, hey, what about me, right?
Exactly. And
how often do you recommend doing this stuff? Like once a day, as much as possible?
Every time you breastfeed about 8 times a day.
Yeah.
When he's on one side, and he could be on one side anywhere from 4 minutes to about 7, I think it is. When he's on that
sometimes we do 10-15 minutes on one side.
Yeah, I mean, for Chasey, he was about 5 minutes on one side and then 7 minutes on the other, but it was always pretty much that he always wanted to go back and forth. He was not
But what about like mamas who don't breastfeed? Like if they're
when you're giving the bottle.
Okay. Oh, so anytime a baby eats, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Just for me, the best part about that is they're right in your lap. You're right in your lap. You're sitting still. For me, I told you this, I'm a woman that like I have to constantly be going. Like
me too. I'm like checking email, social media, which is so bad.
Yeah. So for me, when I'm breastfeeding, I hate just sitting there. For me, that was like one of the things that drove me. I love to breastfeed my son, but making me sit still for 12 to 15 minutes when I could be doing something else drove me crazy. And it's
like every 2 hours. It's not like once or twice a day. It's all the damn time.
So for me, I'm like, okay, well, at least if I'm not getting into the gym right now, I can at least be working on something. And so this would just give me that time where I would just put my phone down. I really tap into that breath pattern of inhaling and exhaling, and this breath pattern of really going slow, using your core, filling the belly with the inhales, and exhaling all the air out and contracting your core actually puts you into like a rest and restorative state. So during the day when we're breathing with our chest, we're tuning into kind of that flight response of, oh my gosh, there's like a tiger chasing after me. And I have to go, oh my God. And you notice that, and it's funny too, because like we're in a society now where so many people smoke. Even like it's not so bad in the States, but in Germany, so many people smoke. And it's literally when they go outside and they're taking their like big, deep inhales and exhales, they're literally just trying to calm themselves down, and they're doing that by inhaling tobacco, where if you just kind of use that time to be like, okay, I'm going to take this time to inhale and exhale, you're putting yourself back and you're kind of resetting your body to go back into a restorative rest and restorative. And what do postpartum moms need? That's what they need more than anything. So this is kind of just the toolbox for you to do. And you could this type of breathing, this type of pelvic floor activation, you can be doing whenever. You can be doing this before you go to sleep.
In the car.
In the car, anytime. And so when they're in your lap and you're kind of holding them, it gives you a perfect place for you to be able to feel your stomach draw away from them and into them, and away from them and into them. And that's why it's one of my favorite spots to breastfeed with them, or to breastfeed and to be doing this, or to be.
And you just cycle through them, like since there's so many of them, you just go like one by one.
Or you could just pick one and be like, okay, this week this is the one that I'm going to work on, because every time I do it, I activate my glutes. So then you just work on that one, and then the next week you work on another one, or maybe you start getting better midway through the week, and you're okay, now I want to try to do.
Well, you know what's crazy? If I'm nursing 8 times a day, you can almost do one each time you nurse, so you get through all of them in one day.
Yeah.
So you're constantly
that's another thing. The only thing that women should be cautious of, and I feel like for most postpartum women, this isn't going to be them, but it's just if you do feel like you have an overactive pelvic floor where it's really hard for you to push down.
Okay.
If you feel like it's incredibly hard for you to tune into that or just to relax it, and if you feel like you're in the grocery store and you tune in with your pelvic floor and all of a sudden it's like it's still clenching, you may want to go see a physical therapist and have them.
Okay, so that's a good point, because there's so many moms, even like on my Two Hearts One Bump page, that mentioned like they just randomly peed but didn't even realize, weren't even trying to.
Yes.
So is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah, so they may actually have an overactive pelvic floor, and at that point, it's important to go see someone who's going to do a manual kind of check to
Like
see.
physical therapy?
Yeah, and so they actually go in, and my
Okay.
girlfriend Kara's gone through it, and she can always jump in and on your group and explain what happens.
Yeah.
But they actually do go inside. They ask for your consent, but they do kind of check. I saw a wonderful post the other day where not only was she checking, just sitting and standing there, but when she was actually like having a barbell on her back, and the physical therapist was checking her pelvic floor to make sure
That's really cool.
that her pelvic floor was strong enough to be kind of accepting that load.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I did see one of the comments of how soon after can I engage the pelvic floor? So here in Germany, I think I mentioned this to you, is about in the afternoon. So they start coming in the morning, and then in the afternoon, a physical therapist comes into your room. She looks at how you delivered, and then she starts giving you kind of a prescription of like how to start activating the core muscles and the pelvic floor so that you can start rehabbing right away. So I had Jackson was born at 5 o'clock in the afternoon or 5:30 in the afternoon, and by that morning at 9 a.m., so about a little bit more than 12 hours later, I had a PT in my room making me do glute lifts and holding it and breathing all at the same time and making sure I was like activating my pelvic floor. She's like, "Are you activating? Do you feel a contraction there?" And I'm like, "Yes." And so she made me do this, and she said she came back the next day, and for 3 days when I was in the hospital, every day she'd come back, she'd check my stomach, she'd check me for a diastasis and give me more exercises to do. With Chase, same thing. Chase was born around 9 o'clock in the morning, and at about 3:30 in the afternoon, I had a PT in my room, and she's like, "Okay, we're going to do your physical therapy. Is this your first time?" And I'm like, "Nope, I know what I'm doing this time." And before you even leave the hospital, they give you this little cool pamphlet, and it shows you like all these cool things about your pelvic floor.
Wow.
And what I love more than anything is when you are sitting on the toilet and you're trying to go poop, especially after you had a baby. Even if you had a C-section, you round your back so that the abdominals can push in and help you poop. And then
I totally underestimated how hard it would be to poop after. I didn't even realize, even with a C-section, like I was scared. I felt the urge, but I was scared to like clench or do anything like that. It's crazy how it's all connected.
Yeah. And so that was kind of getting into everything else, is that this breath is really connected to everything. So when we breathe and the diaphragm pushes down and our pelvic floor pushes down and the abdominals come out, everything's interconnected there. And especially when we have to poop, like you hear of when you're nervous and you have the urgency to go to the bathroom. And so it's just all the stuff of where either everything's too tight or it's just too loose. And so it's really having to connect everything with breath.
And I felt like with the C-section, like it literally felt like someone went inside me and took a spoon and stirred up all my organs. And I didn't know what was where and how to connect to all of it. You know what I mean? So I think it's especially important to like really breathe and think through all these things, because even now, 10 weeks postpartum, I'm still feeling like I can't 100% feel my bladder and feel when it's full, and like the way I used to be able to connect with it before I was pregnant. So
I mean, I would love to know how you progress and once you kind of work on these. I mean, even still now, I'm 18. Tomorrow I will be 18 months postpartum with Chase. And I mean, there's times where I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to pee. But I think it's just I'm so used to like running to the bathroom before we leave the house that I end up really not having to pee. It's just kind of like my mind's in that. You have
like
to go
a
to the
mental.
bathroom. And so I'm kind of trying to train myself out of that. And I'm going to probably see a PT sometime this year with my pelvic floor, But I can just tell you that with these cues, it made such a big difference. Like I said,
Yeah, I'm excited to incorporate them and to share them as well with like my community. So
it's fun. And even like if you're down in a squat and you're kind of like about to bend and you're going to pick up the car seat and you're in that squat, see if when you're down there, if you can push against your pelvic floor and lift it.
Okay. Like the bulge.
Bulge, and see if you can, like, as you pick up the stroller, or if you, as you pick, I mean, even if you're filling up a stroller and putting it into the car, but as you're picking up that car seat, see if you can lift the pelvic floor as you lift, because then for you, when you go and you start lifting like kettlebells and all that stuff, you'll know how to kind of activate your pelvic floor when you're doing it.
So I would say so far, like, luckily a lot of my workout stuff has felt okay, but the one thing I'm sure you saw in my post that felt really like almost an out of body experience was the running. And I don't know if the C-section makes it worse because of the incision, your abs are like ripped apart, but like it literally felt like in a dream where you're trying to run and you can't run, and everything down there, like my pelvic area, my hips, my back, nothing was like connecting or firing. And if you were to tell me like go sprint and go get that ball, I wouldn't know how. I would just be like waddling over there like a penguin. So is there anything I should specifically focus on to get my body overall like able to like get into that flow of like running naturally?
How you are connecting to those lower abdominals, I would keep doing that. I'll give you some exercises of where you're kind of just dropping the leg and you're learning how to connect the leg to the core muscles. And so when you have that incision, think of it as like a block, because what's happened is now that you have an incision there and everything's still healing inside, a lot of people think, okay, well, I have an incision on the outside, but everything is the same inside. They had to stitch you up inside too. And so now,
and I felt that when I was healing, I felt the internal stitches. It was very difficult for me to get up, walk, sit, whatever it was. And they were like, you're feeling all the stitches on the insides.
So what I would do is I'll give you these exercises to kind of learn how to engage the legs and the core at the same time. That you're just going to be on your back and you'll drop a leg slowly down until you feel like the abs can't connect anymore. And then you bring the leg up, and then you'll lower the leg until you feel like you can't connect to, like, you know how basically when you're like your back pops off the ground? Don't let your back pop off the ground. So until you can't hold it anymore. But make sure when you're doing it, you're exhaling and you're drawing everything in, almost as if you're wearing a corset, and it's like wrapping the abdominals in together. I don't want to be pushing out against it. So as you drop the leg, imagine kind of the abs coming like this, instead of pushing out against the skin. That will help. Another thing, and this woman, I have to learn a little bit more about what she's saying, but there's a woman in the UK, and she actually tells women to just take some like coconut oil and just massage the scar. Just massage it every single day.
Yeah, I read about that, like just breaking down the scar tissue.
And it really starts connecting the body. And I'll send you, I'm going to make a little note to send it to you because I have someone else to send it to as well. Is there's a video of this guy who he makes these skeletons, and they have all these different elastic bands on them. And he shows you that when you're just rotating the hips like this, how every single little thing is moving. So when you're just rotating the hips like this, the head is moving and the shoulders are moving. And every little thing is moving. And so as soon as you have a C-section scar or a scar from any sort of other surgery, if it's somewhere else in your body, if you have a scar from where, like below your knee,
it's like you're cutting that band, right?
You're cutting like that. I'm very into energy, and so you're basically cutting it off right there. And now there has to be new ways that the muscles communicate. You know,
I agree 100%. I totally underestimated it. I went out to play soccer. I was feeling great. I was like, I'm going to score a goal today. And the second I started running, I was like, what is happening? Like there was a mind to body disconnect 100%. And I would say what I feel is like almost like the pubic bone area. It feels like a weird like pressure. And like what, like, you know how you're talking about the sits bones and like moving them back and forth? It's like the sits bones are disconnected. The pubic bone, it's like all those little bones in that area feel odd. if
Mm-hmm.
I move them in a non-traditional like way.
Okay. So what that could also be is just that feeling of off. And this is why I really recommend that women don't follow any of like the, I don't want to say,
Body.
yeah. Is because, thank you for saying it. I didn't have to say it. Because it takes time for your body to heal down there, and doing any sort of lunges or anything where the legs are having to go apart from each other and the kind of a quick movement. Like I really like doing static plie squats or kind of like sumo squats where you're starting to load a little bit, but the legs are still sturdy. And I really don't like giving, like I have a back lunge, kind of like what you talked about, where you're rotating, but I don't include that until women are probably 17 or 18 weeks postpartum.
Okay.
And especially
it makes sense because if I, like you mentioned, you're on point. If I lunge or if I do any kind of squat where I'm not 100% stable, I do like baby at the bar. And so certain like plies and different, I don't know what they call them, but different movements, I feel that weird like sits bone, pubic bone, like disconnection thing.
And like there's a little bit of pain there. So what it actually
even
is,
with the C-section, I still dilated. So it's still all like moved around down there.
Yeah. And you believe it or not, you still have hormones running through your body. Just because baby came out does not mean like you're breastfeeding. So until you stop, like for me, I stopped breastfeeding when Chase was 10 months old. And it wasn't until he was 14, 15 months that I could do like a plank where I was pulling and kicking my leg out, you know?
Okay.
I think they call them the renegade row. I could not do a renegade row because I follow the program to kind of help my moms be able to be prepared for it, and I can give them modifications. But I could not do a renegade row until I was 3 months post breastfeeding.
Remind me what a renegade row is.
So you're in a plank position. Do some workouts right here. So you're in a plank position. You have the band and you pull the band out and you kick the leg forward.
Oh, yeah. So much core and stability.
So there's so much core. There's so much stability of the hips going on there. Yeah. That if you're a new mom,
I wouldn't even be able to attempt that.
There's really, I mean, and it's not that you're not strong. You could be so strong. You could be doing exercise every single day. But because you have the hormone relaxin still surging through your body 3, 4, 5 months postpartum, and then if you're breastfeeding, you're still going, it's going to take a while for women to fully heal and recover.
Yeah.
So that's why it's really important to find a program that's been written by someone who this is, I would say, their specialty, to be honest, not just, I have a certification. This is what their specialty is. Because for me, like, I talked to a guy last week and he wants to help me kind of retain my clients. And I'm like, for me, I'd love to retain my client base, but I love working with pregnant moms and I love working with postpartum moms. And my goal for my postpartum moms is to get them doing whatever it is that they love doing before they met me.
Yeah, exactly.
Because then I feel that's when I feel like I've been successful as a coach.
Yeah, like for me, if I can get back to CrossFit and soccer and all these things and not feeling that weird disconnect, that's my goal, right?
Yeah, but it's going to take time. And a lot of people, that's the other thing that people don't share on social media is how much time it takes.
Right.
Because
I don't think there's any
look
sense
how
of time.
fast.
People just jump right back. Like one of my CrossFit girls that I know is like, oh yeah, this girl had a C-section and after 7 weeks, she's back at the gym. It's like, how did she just jump right back into CrossFit? Like I would be too scared to, you know?
Yeah. I could help you and I can give you modifications.
but like it's better, I think, to like build a foundation. Right?
Exactly. And that's kind of what the course that I'm working on right now for Germany is just teaching women how to build up those foundations so that when they want to go back into their mat Pilates classes, when they want to go back into, I think it's like called PO Fit, like PO is your butt. So it's like butt fit or something. Like whenever you get into those classes, or like they have something with like their back and they have like weights and everything. And it's like, if you want to get back into those classes, I want to help you, but I want to give you kind of like a toolbox of how to engage your core, how to connect to the pelvic floor, how to get everything strong so that when you're in those classes, you're ready. But then people are like, oh, well, I want to go back to like kickboxing. I really don't recommend doing kickboxing until you are like 3 months after you finish breastfeeding, just because if you're doing anything where you're having to like swing your leg up high, that's, again, you're spreading the pelvis, and your pelvis just isn't stable yet.
So as long as someone's breastfeeding, these hormones are going to be running through. Yeah.
I mean, it's a beautiful thing, and it's one of those things where it's like, if you really want to be fit, you pick one or the other.
Well, and it's like, for me, it's like liquid gold. Like everyone asks me like, how long is your goal? I'm like, I haven't set a number, just as long as my body will give him milk, because it's so good for him. So
yeah. I mean, I could go into that too, and what my school of thought is. And I can bring on she is a professional lactation expert. She has spoken in front of hundreds of people. She's probably 70 something years old, and she's been doing this for the last 40 years. She knows everything. And I told her I was still trying to breastfeed, and she's like, well, how are you doing? And I'm like, well, it's getting really hard for me. And she's like, well, then stop. No one's holding you to anything, like you've done it for 11 months. You can go ahead. I'm like, but it's just so hard. And she's like, as soon as you start struggling, your baby's going to be struggling, because it's no longer enjoyable for you. And because it's no longer enjoyable for you, the baby's not going to enjoy it. So there's really no, so when the mom is happy, the baby's happy. And if the mom's going to be happy giving her baby formula, then the baby's going to be happy too. So I thought that was really good.
Another topic we can do down the line, for sure.
I thought it was
endless things that we can talk about. Yeah.
So I hope this was helpful for you, and I'd love for you to kind of give me some feedback in a week of how it went.
I'm excited to try them, because I've read and learned about different things. Like, I'm constantly researching and asking questions, but these are definitely not ones that I've come across or tried. So I'm excited.
Good. And I'll give, I mean, I have 6 exercises here that I'll give you after our call, and then and I'll post them into the group as well.
Awesome. If it could be like in a small little like PDF or something that I could screenshot, then when I'm nursing, I can just pull it up.
I will do that. I'll make it. I'll put it in my stories too.
Just so down the line, when you work with moms, and you're like, these are already going to be like in a screenshot that you can see on your phone. Because that's the kind. If I'm like forgetting what's the 7th one, I'm not gonna like scroll to like the 10th minute of our video. You know what I mean? So it'll be nice to have it like a visual.
I'll do it. That's a good idea.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll give you.
Thank you so much, Meredith. I appreciate your time.
Of course, it was my pleasure. You have a good evening, or I guess good rest of your day for you guys.
Because what time is it for you? It's 12:30 here.
9:30.
Okay. We're like 9 hours apart. Will you send me the link?
I will send you the link to this, right?
To this video. Are you gonna?
I'll upload it to YouTube.
Perfect. Exactly what I was thinking.
And I'll include a link to our. Do you want me to include the link to the Facebook group?
That would be great if you don't mind. That would be wonderful. I think so many women could benefit from this. And when I'm breastfeeding, like I'm like looking for things to look at and watch. So I think it'll be perfect when moms do have that little bit of downtime. Cool. Thank you. Have a great night.
My pleasure.
We'll talk soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye.